Exterminatus is a High Gothic term that sounds beautiful, but is completely immoral in its essence. It is a sanction by the highest authorities of the Imperium of Man, designed to destroy the entire biosphere of a planet. These actions are taken only in extreme circumstances, when a potential or actual strategic threat is of such a high level that it could spread to other Imperial worlds. The world in question may have fallen to chaos, or its Imperial government overthrown and replaced by the rule of Xenos, such as gene stealers. Or it could be a non-Imperial world harboring an extremely powerful and dangerous Xenos species. Exterminatus is often resorted to when a world is deemed not worth the amount of men and resources it would take to conquer or bring back into the fold of the Imperium. Exterminatus has very rarely been used on planets vital or strategically valuable to the Imperium. As a rule, the order can only be given by a high-ranking Imperial commander of the Astra Militarum, the Imperial Navy, the Adeptus Astartes, or a full member of the Imperial Inquisition. The actual execution of a planet can be carried out in various ways. The Imperial Navy usually resorts to mass bombardment, as the number of ships in fleet groups often allows them to blow small planetoids to pieces. Space Marines prefer to use torpedoes and bombs, burning away life on the planet's surface. The Inquisition considers it best to use other hands. Exterminatus has existed since the days of the Great Crusade. Originally, the authority to sanction Exterminatus was reserved exclusively for the Emperor and the Primarchs. However, once the Horus heresy erupted and burned across the galaxy, the newly formed Inquisition was granted the right to speak in the Emperor's name. Exterminatus is always a heavy and irreversible decision. For this reason, not all forces of the Imperium immediately consider its use. It is not even mentioned as a solution to all problems. Even though a planet is halfway to becoming a demon world, as was the case with the planet Opus, the Imperial Fists decided to handle the situation by other means. But more often than not, the fate of a world was decided by the forces of the Inquisition. The Imperium has known Inquisitors who claim to have been doing this for over a century, burning worlds to the ground. As for the current state of affairs, the Inquisition has an entire Ordo Excorium created solely to manage this kind of business, so that people do not commit mass genocide when there is an alternative way to solve the problem. The Ordo Excorium is a minor ordo of the Inquisition. The department consists of just under 100 Inquisitors. According to official figures, they approve only about 10% of the requests they review. This is a rather sad statistic. But whatever statistic is sad in the Imperium, the human factor has always been the primary element when sentencing a planet. Many decisions can be made simply because politics or the selfish motives of an Inquisitor or other high-ranking official have come into play. Corruption and leverage have always been the bane of the Imperium. And since the Inquisition is the final frontier of decision-making and has only internal regulation, there is always room and temptation for abuse. Exterminatus can be executed in many ways. Some of them are very specific and are implemented only because standard and common methods are not applicable to the situation. When we get to the list of known cases of Exterminatus practice, you will learn about a couple of such methods. For now, let's look at the main methods. Orbital bombardment from Imperial warships is the simplest means of executing Exterminatus, as it can be done solely with the standard firepower already at the disposal of the Imperial Navy. The power of orbital bombardment can range from small precision strikes, not unlike modern surface-to-surface missiles, to full thermonuclear detonation. Typically, special munitions, such as cyclonic torpedoes, are used, designed to destroy all life on the planet's surface, and often even rooted deep in the crust. Imperial virus bombs release a specific pathogen, known as the Life Eater virus, which was genetically engineered to rapidly spread and destroy all organic cellular structures it infects, turning all planetary life, whether flora or fauna, into an undifferentiated organic sludge of biochemicals and organic gases as a byproduct, both of which are highly flammable. The pathogen can penetrate even sealed suits, including power armor. Afterwards, an incendiary bomb is dropped on the planet to ignite the byproducts and turn the atmosphere into a firestorm, which usually destroys any remnants of life. Only those who escape to particularly deep underground shelters can survive a virus bomb attack. The population of Talern managed to escape complete destruction in this way, but their once green world was forever turned into a desert, which usually destroys any remnants of life. Only those who escape to particularly deep underground shelters can survive a virus bomb attack. The population of Talern managed to escape complete destruction in this way, but their once green world was forever turned into a desert. Virus bombs are known for their extreme speed. During the Horus Heresy, they completely wiped out the entire population of Istvan III, 16 billion people, in just a few solar minutes, leaving the planet barren but habitable. This method saw its most frequent use during the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy in the late 30th and early 31st millennia. In some cases, the lifeless dead worlds left behind by virus bombings still prove valuable to the Adeptus Mechanicus. These planets can be converted into mining worlds, or even prepared for a new round of terraforming to make them fit for Imperial colonists once again. They were largely replaced in Imperial arsenals by more powerful cyclonic torpedoes by the end of the 41st millennium, but were still retained in some stockpiles. The reason is insufficient reliability. Often the danger lurking on the planet could survive a virus bombardment, and additional measures had to be taken. A cyclonic torpedo is an Imperial weapon of mass destruction launched from a starship into low planetary orbit. There is a wide variety of weapon types that fall under the designation of cyclonic torpedo, but they all possess the ability to destroy the biosphere of a target world, either by initiating a thermonuclear reaction that ignites all free oxygen in the atmosphere, or by the simple method of plasma bombardment via nuclear fusion. Whatever the exact origin of the impending mass death, the result of this weapon is always the same: the complete destruction of the planetary biosphere. Its atmosphere is burned away, and its oceans boiled to steam, leaving behind a barren, dead world. The blast radius is large enough to be seen from space, and the detonation is usually powerful enough to crack the planet's crust and destabilize its core. An atmospheric torpedo is a variant of the cyclonic torpedo that ignites a thermonuclear chain reaction in a planet's atmosphere. Without hesitation, it will quickly consume all free oxygen, initiating a planetary inferno that burns the entire biosphere to ash. This weapon was specifically deployed to conduct Exterminatus on the planet Medusa IV in the Medusa system around the year 750 of the 41st millennium. The planet had been overrun by chaos forces, which posed a constant danger due to the Medusa system's proximity to the warp rift, known as the Van Grotha's rapidity. Despite the intervention of a number of Imperial forces, including the Ultramarines' Second Company, the warheads ignited the planet's oxygen-rich atmosphere, consuming everything in a fire that destroyed all signs of life on this world, turning metal to molten slag and stone to glass. The planet burned brightly for an entire solar month, and from the safety of their own world, the inhabitants of Medusa V watched in awe as their neighbor was consumed by the cleansing flames of the Emperor's justice. Those loyal citizens of Medusa IV who escaped offered prayers of thanks to the Emperor for their deliverance. Modalis-class atmospheric missiles are the most powerful type of Imperial Phosphex weapon. A volley of several Modalis atmospheric missiles from orbital warships will envelope an entire world in deadly phosphex. The resulting firestorm of green mist will consume all carbon elements on the planet, rendering it uninhabitable. During the Horus Heresy, at the battle for the planet of Perceptia, master of the 17th chapter of the Ultramarines, Aeonid Decimus, decided to use phosphex to win a victory over the Word-bearers on already scorched Earth. During the Horus Heresy, at the battle for the planet of Perceptia, master of the 17th chapter of the Ultramarines, Aeonid Decimus, decided to use phosphex to win a victory over the Word-bearers on already scorched Earth. The surviving 13th Legion ship in orbit, the Righteous Fury, fired 24 Modulus-class atmospheric missiles at Perceptia before it was finally destroyed by the 18th Legion ship Illuminated. The cold fire crept across the planet, consuming the remaining defenders and attackers alike. The planet turned into hell. Two-stage cyclonic torpedoes, which are a more exotic form of standard torpedoes, are designed for use against worlds with no atmosphere or biologically empty worlds. An example is Necron tomb worlds. These torpedoes have two-stage warheads. The first stage is an extraordinarily powerful melta charge that breaches the planet's crust and mantle all the way to its core. The second stage is a modified cyclonic plasma charge that destabilizes the core, in most cases physically shattering the planet from within. Talos of the Night Lords used a scaled-down version of the torpedoes when a Genesis Chapter strike cruiser tried to hide behind one of the moons. The torpedo blasted a continent-sized hole in the moon, and the Night Lords watched as the Loyalist ship was torn apart when a new asteroid field of debris shot into space from the other side of the moon. Asteroid strike. This method involves radically altering the orbit of a nearby moon or large asteroid and placing it on a collision course with the planet, and therefore requires the use of several Mechanicus starships. This method was used to destroy Phanon Prime when a virus bomb failed to perform its function. It was also used during the Horus Heresy to destroy the World Eater's recruiting world of Bot, and during the Badab War to finally breach Huron's protective steel ring around Badab. Needless to say, this method destroys the planet in question. Despite its effectiveness, the Administratum vehemently asks Imperial commanders to avoid this method whenever possible, because it is expensive and time-consuming. It can take weeks or even months for a moon or asteroid to actually strike a planet,
which costs rations and sublight fuel while ships sit idle.
In contrast, there is always orbital bombardment, which costs only a fraction of a day's waste. Economics. Other factions in the Warhammer world can also boast various ways of destroying planets and planetoids. Let's start with the Eldar. This race, which once ruled the entire galaxy, has preserved a large number of artifacts that can surprise even the most inquisitive scholars of the Imperium. One such was recorded on Validus. The Eldar gave it the name Fireheart, and its principle of operation lay in a zero-resonant effect on the planet's core, after which it began to collapse, thereby triggering numerous lava flows to the surface and destabilizing tectonic plates, an effect similar to a two-stage torpedo bombardment. Fortunately for the human race, the Eldar value life and are in no hurry to use their terrible artifacts of bygone eras with the same recklessness as the Imperium.
With the Necrons, it's even more interesting. This faction has plenty of weapons capable of destroying planets. And that's not surprising, knowing how far the Necrons have advanced in manipulating the physical principles of the universe. They simply appear as they awaken, revealing more and more terrifying devices and weapons here and there. One of the most interesting examples is the World Engine. This tomb world resembled a planet more than a ship. Its primary weapon was a titanic Gauss flare, capable of tearing apart entire planets with a single volley. Fortunately for the Imperium, it was destroyed in the early stages of its existence after awakening. We shouldn't forget about unusual methods like the network of special Blackstone pylons in the Pariah Nexus. The system itself serves to suppress and subsequently destroy any higher life form on planets within a massive sector. Cut off from the warp, creatures simply lose all vital signs, eventually suffering a horrific mental collapse. This method also solves any issues with demonic influence, as the warp within the pylon network's area of effect becomes absolutely still, paralyzing any entities within it in eternal agony. And the most reliable weapon in the Necron arsenal is the Catan shards. These beings have mastered the laws of physics and can use them as they see fit. This means gravity has no power over them. Catan shards can simply drop a planet's moons onto its surface, or start tearing its crust apart to reach the core. These creatures have many methods, and they all depend solely on the power of the specific shard in question. The Tau have no need to destroy entire planets, though they already possess weapons suitable for that purpose. Tau technology is capable of a great deal, and if they wished, this faction could become the Imperium's worst nightmare. Take the Arca Cannon, which destroyed only the central nervous system of higher life forms over vast distances, completely leaving the infrastructure or the rest of the planet's biosphere untouched. An ideal tool for clearing a world for subsequent colonization. However, a sort of moral compass still guides the Tau's development in a more restrained, rational direction.
For orcs, the most effective weapon of Exterminatus is asteroids, and even moons. They simply strap engines onto them and steer them straight into planets, causing a catastrophe of apocalyptic proportions. In the War of the Beast, they took it a step further, bringing in a massive fortress made from some planet's moon, reinforcing the surface with numerous steel plates, packing it with orc technological achievements, and making an uncontrolled warp jump to who knows where. The newly appeared moon near the target planet causes a bunch of cataclysms on its surface. But that's not enough for the orcs. They launch a gravity nexus, which is based on the interaction of the gravitational fields of two planets, after which massive chunks the size of the tallest mountains are literally ripped from the unfortunate target world and pulled into a giant maw built on the surface of the attacking moon. After that, the moon only grows in size, gradually devouring other planets. In reality, it sounds terrifying, but most of the attack moons were destroyed during the War of the Beast, and the practice of using such sinister Xenos creations has not appeared in Imperial commanders' reports since.
Inquisitor Kryptman orders the destruction of all life on dozens of worlds, to create a cordon to slow the advance of Hive Fleet Leviathan. Perhaps Leviathan's greatest triumph was the destruction of the vital Forge world, Griffon IV, home of the Legio Griffonicus, a renowned Titan legion. Kryptman knew he had to slow the Hive Fleet's advance to buy time for Battlefleet Solar and Tempestus to arrive. With grim resolve, he ordered a sanitary cordon and decided to use scorched earth tactics across almost the entire sector to prevent the Tyranids from growing stronger. Every world within reach of Leviathan's advance had to be evacuated and subjected to immediate exterminatus where possible, so its biomass could not fuel the Tyranids' production of new bioforms. With one harsh, heartless decision, the Lord Inquisitor committed the worst act of genocide in the Imperium since the Horus Heresy. Kryptman was condemned for this act as a radical and a traitor at the highest level by many other members of the Inquisition. The world of Hardelis was primarily for manufacturing and had orbital shipyards large enough to hold battleships and strike cruisers. As Hive Fleet Leviathan approached, many people tried to evacuate Hardelis, leading to a series of accidents. The world prepared for the Xenos invasion, hoping for support from the Ultramarines, Mortifactors, and Imperial forces in the subsector. Unfortunately, Hardelis was purged, and most of its population was killed, but not by Tyranids. Inquisitor Lord Kryptman ordered the Mortifactor's strike cruiser Mortis Probati to perform Exterminatus, using virus bombs. The high number of civilian deaths and the fact that Kryptman lied about his intention to defend Hardelis infuriated the Ultramarines, especially Uriel Ventress.
And the Tyranids possess the most effective and powerful means of Exterminatus. It is themselves, their very essence. It's hard to argue with that, because the main purpose of their existence is the complete destruction and consumption of life on any planet they encounter. This is probably the most terrifying weapon in the Warhammer universe.
During the conquest of the world of Loki, Lord Commander Solar Macarius decided to destroy it and ordered the tech priests to alter the orbit of Loki's moon. The adepts of the Mechanicum executed the order using massive machines placed on the moon's surface. Titanic plasma engines began moving the moon into the correct orbital trajectory. The result of the impact was not the complete destruction of the planet, but it caused massive shockwaves across the surface of Loki, resulting in severe earthquakes and waves of lava rising from the planetary crust. In the end, the only humans to survive the cataclysm were the heretics locked inside the planet's massive fortresses.
Now let's move on to a number of famous cases of planetary exterminatus.
The world of Mugulath Bay, formerly known as the hive world of Agrelon, was captured by Commander Shadowsun and Supreme Ethereal Anva during the Third Sphere of Expansion. The battle to capture the planet was the largest of the Third Sphere of Expansion. Only the meltdown of the fusion reactor that destroyed Mugulath Bay's moon was considered a failure by Tau standards. Soon, the Imperium's prefecture launched a major counterattack, deciding to take the planet back with the forces of the 478th Fleet Ultima. The Retribution Armada engaged in battle with a couple of hundred ships of various classes. In the end, the Tau managed to hold their ground, despite the colossal numerical superiority in favor of the Imperials. The Imperium, deeming further expenditure of resources impractical, subjected the planet to Exterminatus and destroyed it. The single torpedo fired at the planet contained a rare Mechanicus device that burned away the planet's atmosphere in a short time, striking the northern hemisphere of the former Agrelon, where there was an increased concentration of natural gases. Despite this, several Tau settlements on Mugulath Bay managed to survive thanks to a force shield erected by the Earth Caste. However, the esoteric Mechanicus weapon proved to be far more formidable than originally expected. Mugulath Bay had to be abandoned, as the entire Damocles Gulf was soon engulfed in flames, separating the Imperium of Man from the Tau Empire. Don't ask how it was engulfed in flames, just accept it as a fact.
Faced with the threat of a Tyranid invasion, the Imperium often resorted to desperate measures, following Kryptman's example. The Uluk sector is an Imperium sector located in the Ultima Segmentum. In 997, a series of Exterminatus missions was carried out by Space Marines of the Deathstrike, Genesis, Iron Hands, and Firehawks chapters on many worlds of the sector not yet consumed by Hive Fleet Leviathan. These missions were successful and prevented the Tyranids from obtaining Uluk's precious bioresources, albeit at a high price.
The world of Azoth was the site of a demonic invasion, triggered by the heretical inquisitor Jovas Theon and the dark apostles of the Wordbearers. The planet was later cleansed of life by the Doom Legion in 999 of the 41st millennium.
During the attack on Fenris, demonic forces led by Primarch Magnus made a pact that allowed them to enlist the help of Nurgle's forces. This help was granted in exchange for turning one of the system's planets into a plague world. Mortarian's choice fell on Midgardia, a planet entirely covered in toxic vegetation. The entire population lived in vast underground complexes. The planet was devastated by the demons of Tzeentch and Nurgle. In the end, Magnus unleashed a plague on Midgardia, created by Mortarion himself. This led to Supreme Grand Master of the Dark Angels Azrael launching the Exterminatus procedure. But this proved to be insufficient, because the cleansing fire destroyed all life only on the planet's surface and not in its underground cities. That is why Logan Grimnar, returning from the stone heart of Midgardia, decided to destroy the planet itself, and did so by detonating Midgardia's core. The Space Wolves used the Fang of Morkai, an especially powerful cyclonic torpedo launched from their flagship, the Honor of the Allfather. The torpedo traveled down the central shaft to the Great Generatorum and caused the planet's core to detonate. The destruction of Midgardia caused powerful gravitational waves that rippled through the Fenris system. These waves reached the besieging Silver Towers and forced them to vanish back into the warp. For many years, fragments of Midgardia fell onto the surface of other planets in the Fenris system, and it is said that people who tried to explore these impact sites were cursed and died slowly. Omon on Moros is a forbidden dead world of the Calixis sector. During the Angevin Crusade, the human population of Omon on Moros was deemed too corrupted by mutation to exist, and was ignominiously destroyed by Exterminatus. Such horrors were witnessed on this world that after its destruction, its former location was expunged from all records.
Let's return to our list of the long history of extermination across the Imperium. The once fertile world of Cressida, under the influence of chaos, gradually turned into an icy death world. The arriving Imperial Guard regiments included the Royal Valone and Volgeis warriors, who fought a losing battle just to keep the forces of chaos at bay, while most of the planet's population was evacuated. After the last shuttles departed, the planet was subjected to Exterminatus by virus bombs.
Following the Horus Heresy and the start of the Great Scouring, the Loyalists doomed all worlds associated with the traitor legions to annihilation. Barbarus was among the worlds destroyed by the Dark Angels, shortly before the Siege of Terra using cyclonic torpedoes. At the same time, the monument to the fallen Death Guard legionaries was literally incinerated by targeted fire from the macro cannons of 4 ships, the Invincible Reason, a Gloriana-class battleship, as well as the cruisers Silent Kill, Lady Dancenor, and Last Beast. These same ships, and in particular the Invincible Reason, destroyed another traitor world, Kamos. The fortress monastery of the Emperor's Children was located in the center of the galaxy, in one of the largest cities on the world of Chimos. After the Horus Heresy, it was bombarded from orbit by the very same Dark Angels fleet formation, and then placed under quarantine by the Inquisition after the heresy. The scripture of the Chamosian Canticles was written in the final hours of the planet's life, and is still revered by the human slaves of the Emperor's Children. The succession of destroyed homeworlds of the traitor legions does not end there. When the Ultramarines returned to Colchis to cleanse it after the Horus Heresy, they found a world already ruined. All industries were destroyed, and the people were barely clinging to life. The Inquisition ordered a cleansing using cyclonic torpedoes from the battle barge Octavius, disrupting the fragile geological structure of Colchis, and thereby causing a catastrophic explosion that destroyed the planet once and for all, along with its destitute population. Its fate was shared by another world close to the word-bearers, Hur. First, during the heresy, its main city Monarchia was destroyed by bombardment, and during the Great Scouring, the planet itself was subjected to Exterminatus. Thonia, the homeworld of Horus himself, was also destroyed. All traitor planets were subjected to the harshest cleansing, but they often perished at the hands of their own children. After the defeat of the traitors at the Siege of Terra, Perturabo and the surviving Iron Warriors returned to their fortresses. They tried to defend the small star empire they had built around their homeworld of Olympia. But there was no escape from the retribution of the Loyalist legions during the Great Scouring campaign. The Imperial Fists and Ultramarines, during a decade-long campaign to liberate conquered worlds from the control of the traitor legions, found a well-prepared stronghold of resistance. The Iron Warriors' garrison on Olympia held out for 2 standard years, defending against Loyalist attacks. In the end, when defeat became inevitable, the Iron Warriors triggered their own missile arsenals across the surface of the besieged world. These titanic explosions turned Olympia into a scorched wasteland. Like other traitor legion homeworlds, Olympia was declared a quarantine world by the Inquisition. Nuceria, which was originally cleansed of life by the forces of the World Eaters and Word-Bearers, was now completely exterminated by the Dark Angel's fleet, led by the Lion himself during the Siege of Terra. Sometimes this was done even before the start of the Horus Heresy. A fleet of 50 Night Lords ships destroys Nostramo, their homeworld. Incandescent lances of blinding white light shot from the countless gun batteries of the 50 ships, piercing the doomed world. the converging and intensifying forces of 1,000 locked stars merged into a column of light that was larger than Nostramo's widest spire, Quintus. The massive beam dispelled the darkness surrounding the planet. The heavens were flooded with a haze of light, and a fire of unimaginable power, generated by the Night Lord's bombardment, soared upward, instantly igniting the air for kilometers in all directions. The blinding strike of pure energy broke through Nostramo's dense adamantium crust through the rift formed after the Primarch's arrival. Unimaginable power crashed into the inner layers of the planet's surface until the beam reached the core, and the galaxy witnessed an explosion of rare beauty. The Night Haunter watched the death of Nostramo with calm detachment, feeling the monstrosity of what he had done cover him like a black shroud. Surprisingly, it was not the weight he had expected. As he watched the tectonic plates rupture and the molten heart of the planet spill out to consume the surface and burn the atmosphere, the Primarch felt only a sense of immense relief. The past was dead, and he had shown that the belief he had lived by until then was nothing but empty words. The echoes of the monstrous deed just committed would reverberate many times throughout the Imperium and attract the attention of those who, like him, understood the necessity of the sacrifices that had to be made to preserve the galaxy for humanity. Nostramo burned, and the Night Haunter said, "I take the weight of this crime upon myself, and I shall not fear it, for I am fear incarnate."
The Space Marines of the Bloodraven's Third Company drew most of their recruits from the planet Cyrene. When it was discovered that Cyrene's population had fallen completely under the control of the ruinous powers, the planet was subjected to Exterminatus. It was bombarded with lance batteries and cyclonic torpedoes on the orders of the Inquisition and Captain Gabriel Angelos. The destruction of Cyrene, his homeworld, weighed heavily on Angelos for the rest of his life, though he always expressed confidence that he had made the right decision. The planet is now a Class C dead world, and all further travel to this world is forbidden by order of the Inquisition. In addition, there was another world from which the Blood Ravens recruited, Typhon Primaris. The planet was a dangerous place, with barely 30,000 people scattered across its habitable surface, living in research stations, resource extraction facilities, and military bases. Imperial attention returned to the planet in recent years, when the Bloodraven's Space Marines began recruiting from Typhon Primaris. Ultimately, to deal with the ongoing Tyranid and Chaos threat, roughly a standard decade later, an Imperial retribution fleet, under the command of Ordo Malleus Inquisitor Adrastia during the Third Aurelian Crusade, executed Exterminatus, leaving the world barren and shattered.
The world of Hranks went silent for about 20 years. There was no communication with the governor nor with any ships that entered the system. Having not received the tithe on time, the Adeptus Terra sent a fleet consisting of strike forces from the Dark Angels, Space Wolves, Ultramarines, and the Necromondan Imperial Guard. The fleet was led by Inquisitor Van Dam. Upon arrival in the system, communication was finally established. The planetary governor explained that contact had been lost due to warp storms and orc raiders. The governor offered immediate reparations with apologies and invited Van Dam to the surface of Hranks. As a result, Van Dam and veterans of the Dark Angels descended to the planet and were received by the governor in his palace. During the reception, it was discovered that the planet was under Gene Stealer control, and their plan to infiltrate the fleet was compromised. The Dark Angels and the Inquisitor fought their way back to orbit. An order for destruction was given, and the planet was cleansed using virus bombs. All systems in the immediate subsector were also checked for Xenos infestation.
Joras was the first homeworld of the Firehawk Space Marine chapter. During the Age of Apostasy in the 36th millennium, they fought valiantly in many great battles against the rebel forces of the mad Van Dyer, who had declared himself both High Lord and Ecclesiarch. For their defiance, the Firehawks paid with the destruction of their first homeworld. Van Dyer's Frateris Templar fleet subjected the planet to a thermal bombardment that boiled its atmosphere and scorched the surface, leaving nothing but charred ash on the surface.
Verdan II was an imperial world that became the site of a series of battles between the Deathstrike chapter and hordes recorded in the archives as rebel recidivists. Don't ask who they are. Either way, the Deathstrike's third company suffered heavy casualties, and the chapter master decided to execute Exterminatus on the rebellious planet.
Hesperax is a dark Eldar world, ruled by the succubus Lilith, who got her second name from this planet. During the capture of a Farseer on Ultwe, the Dark Eldar drew the attention of the Deathwatch Marines, who landed on Hesperax but were captured themselves, sharing the fate of the Eldar to be gladiators for the amusement of the Drukhari. However, the Space Marines managed to make a daring escape during the arena fights. Beneath the arena itself, and the volcano where it was located, the Deathwatch found an ancient esoteric pool, where all the souls slain in the arena gathered. Knowing this place was important to Lilith, they began rigging this energy source with all the available explosives they managed to secure during their escape. As soon as the detonation occurred, the Marines retreated to their surviving Thunderhawk and returned to their ship. The detonation of the device triggered a chain reaction and the destruction of the volcano itself. Its eruption became so violent that the planet began to tear itself apart. Thus, the Deathwatch initiated the Exterminatus of a Xenos planet in a rather unusual way.
The ship Emperor's Despair spent many years executing orders to exterminate planets with the Life Eater virus. The planets Mordunix, Hephaestus, Trub 2 and 3, and the Stum cluster. All of them were destroyed by the Doom Warriors chapter through virus bomb bombardment. The Tears of the Emperor was a new strain of the virus they received from a Magos of the Mechanicus, which they were to test on a world named Slaughter, sentenced to Exterminatus for total heresy. The new strain was delivered and installed into the delivery systems by the Adepts of the Mechanicus in short order. A modified Life Eater that attacks not flesh and bone, but the spark of life itself. The old Life Eater consumed protein, multiplying exponentially and turning all organic matter into an explosive sludge, burning away all elements necessary for life on the planet. The Tears of the Emperor take life itself. Deep in the bowels of the vessel, the rumbling fury rapidly reached a pulsing, ear-splitting crescendo and vanished. A softly illuminated line of virus torpedoes began its rapid descent towards Slaughter. The warheads gleamed in the light of a distant sun, shining in the framing blackness. Deep in the bowels of the vessel, the rumbling fury rapidly reached a pulsing, ear-splitting crescendo and vanished. A softly illuminated line of virus torpedoes began its rapid descent towards Slaughter. The warheads gleamed in the light of a distant sun, shining in the framing blackness. The torpedoes plunged into the upper atmosphere like quicksilver. Through the viewing ports of the launch gallery, the explosions looked beautiful. The contents of the munitions sparkled and shimmered in the sunlight. Although the Tears of the Emperor were soon lost in the thick layers of the atmosphere, the effect was immediate. From the lower layers, large dark clouds of inorganic matter billowed into space. These were dying bacteria that lived in the planet's ammonia-rich atmosphere. Since life forms were more complex and numerous the closer they were to the planet's surface, the dark clouds spread across the entire planet like oil on water, infecting every iota of life with death, stripping life from all existence. Clouds of dead, decaying matter sprouted into space, driven by the energy of their own destruction. The hive shafts fell silent within seconds. Slaughter found peace. In the end, it turned out to be a virus created by a Nurgle-possessed Magos, and all those killed rose again as plague zombies, which contributed to the total infection of the entire region.
The Horus Heresy caused many anomalies to appear. During the formation of the Ruin Storm, the world of Davin became the nexus of the Warp Storm and was enclosed in a massive sphere made of the bones of trillions of organisms. Now a world of madness, Davin was visited by the combined fleets of Sanguinius, Robute Gilliman, and Lion L. Johnson, as they attempted to break through the Ruin Storm and reach Terra. During the battle, the Primarchs managed to evacuate the planet and destroyed Davin with cyclonic torpedoes from 6 battleships of the Blood Angels, Ultramarines, and Dark Angels. The Invincible Reason, Red Tier, Gauntlet of Glory, Ultimus Mundi, Intolerant, and Decimator.
The population of the planet Fallen Core began to rebel against the Imperium, and the Imperial Guard arrived on the planet to suppress the uprising with the forces of the 35th Octiberian Regiment. During the fighting, the Guard discovered that a Genestealer cult was behind the rebellion and requested support from the Adeptus Astartes to finally wipe out the infestation. Although they succeeded, it was already too late. The first Tyranid bioships appeared on the edge of the star system. Although the Imperium fought to save the core, the Tyranids soon overwhelmed the resistance, and the few survivors who could still be saved were evacuated. After that, the Imperial fleet conducted Exterminatus with virus bombs, destroying the entire surface of the planet.
The Necron-held planet Eldritch was destroyed by an Exterminatus order, carried out in 998 of the 41st millennium by 3 companies of the Sable Swords Space Marine chapter. 2-stage torpedoes were used to completely destroy the world.
During the battle with the Tau Empire for Dolumar IV, Battlefleet Ultima Primus found itself forced to make a temporary truce with the Xenos and destroy Dolumar IV itself. The world had fallen completely under the sway of the ruinous powers, which threatened to spread their influence further into the sector. Battlefleet Command destroyed it with cyclonic torpedoes and virus bombs, allowing the main Tau forces to retreat.
When a joint expedition of rogue traders and the 5th Company of the Dark Angels entered orbit of the planet Phas 5, the fleet was immediately fired upon by orbital energy weapons. The Dark Angels fought their way through hordes of slaves and eventually destroyed the massive logic engines housing the Heretech. Although the Dark Angels believed they had freed the planet's population from oppression, the former captives rejected the rule of the Imperium and yearned to be under the control of the machine once more. A massive rebellion against Imperial rule began, and the 5th Company had to launch a grueling 4-month counterinsurgency campaign. The rebels were pushed back to their strongholds and eventually completely wiped out. After the rebellion ended, the Dark Angels left Phas 5 to burn in the fires of Exterminatus, despite the rogue trader's offer to study the remains of the machine intelligence.
In 579, the world of Torius was cut off from the rest of the Imperium by a warp storm. 300 years passed before it re-emerged. In 879, it was completely transformed into a demon world, full of horrors and dread. A warp rift appeared in the sky as a pulsing ring of purple fire, heralded a week earlier by strange omens, bleeding statues, birds flying backward, and even the Imperial commander's daughter trying to bite his throat. Portals opened all over the planet's surface, and hordes of demons poured into reality. Shortly after the madness began to engulf the planet, the warp rift began to fluctuate. The demons, sensing their time in this world was limited, committed increasingly heinous acts, eventually killing and burning every living creature they could find in massive soul furnaces, whose emissions left the world in pitch darkness. The planet was already beyond saving, and as an act of mercy, Inquisitor Thrax ordered its destruction.
Holistus was a demon world completely given over to the power of Nurgle. When Chaplain Vorzek Calvarius of the Silver Skulls brought 100 of his brothers to its surface, the Space Marines cleansed a vast number of Holistus' corrupted sites. But with each victory, more Silver Skulls fell, until only Vorzek remained. When the Chaplain found himself surrounded by a horde of Nurgle's servants, he called down Exterminatus from the Imperial Navy ships in orbit, leaving no chance for himself or this fallen world.
The doom of Geistis began with a seemingly minor incident. A manufactorum worker, no older than 12, began to suffer from agonizing headaches and hear voices. Unaware that he was a latent psyker, the boy was confronted by his shift supervisor during an especially severe headache for not working hard enough. In the grip of his migraine, the boy burst out with a strange curse that even he didn't understand. Reality began to bend, and fat-bodied flies bearing the boy's own face and chanting prayers to the chaos god Nurgle appeared in the middle of the room. The boy split open like a bloody flower. Through the bloody and twitching remains, a daemonic portal opened, and something terrible began to push its way through the warp. 3 weeks later, the Grey Knights landed on Geistis. There they found only oceans of boiling blood, with demons of Khorne and Nurgle fighting among themselves, and the remnants of the Space Marine forces that had come to the aid of the dying world. Despite the subsequent cleansing, the Inquisitors of the Ordo Malleus decided the world was tainted beyond measure, and Exterminatus was enacted by the Grey Knights' strike cruisers. Although only a few months had passed since the opening of the first warp rift, Geistis was torn to pieces.
In the past, the agricultural world of Catharis had been saved from an Eldar pirate raid by the White Consuls. Decades later, a daemonic invasion from the warp suddenly appeared and engulfed the entire planet, killing most of the population. A message for help was sent from the last human stronghold on Catharis. Soon, Inquisition ships arrived in orbit and began the Exterminatus of Catharis, as what they saw was beyond the point of saving.
The First War for Armageddon was marked by a massive genocide of the population that witnessed the unfolding madness. Initially, Grey Knight's ships destroyed the guard transports that had participated in the battles on Armageddon. However, when the Space Wolves battle barge, the Gylfaginning, arrives at Armageddon, the Inquisition and the Grey Knights are forced to back down in the face of the looming threat of internal conflict. Numerous troop transports escape with the help of the Wolves, but Lord Inquisitor Kisnas still does not abandon his plans to eliminate the population, and a more extensive purge begins. Any world or outpost that came into contact with the survivors was subjected to Exterminatus by Grey Knight's ships, resulting in the destruction of the Adeptus Astrotelepathica station Rallios Meridian, the worlds of Gendara Quintus and Tybild, and the Adeptus Mechanicus outpost Priam Novus. Meanwhile, the Inquisition itself tracked down the landing transports, destroying them in warp transit. It seemed that the actions of the Space Wolves had only doomed even more worlds to destruction.
Daysai, out Malim Wrong, foresired by 853.m41, the rebellion against Imperial rule on Krondor III, which was believed to have been successfully suppressed over 50 standard years ago, flared up again. Mutants, psychers, and all kinds of outcasts had been nurtured in darkness and corruption by the whispers of hooded chaos cultists. The raging rebellion engulfs the planet's surface. Hive city after hive city, orbital watch stations and defense lasers are seized by Chaos Space Marines, accompanied by hideous creatures, neither human nor mutant, but demonic beasts. 3 Space Marine chapters, led by the Imperial Fists, secure resources, Imperial artifacts, and several Adeptus Administratum officials before the act of Exterminatus is mercifully enacted. About 42 Astra Militarum regiments from Krondor III still exist. They are the only survivors of their lost and darkened world, because they had been deployed to distant war zones before the rebellion began. Mataris IV was subjected to Exterminatus, which was carried out by the Death Watch in 920.m37. It was all due to a parasite colony of a terrible Xenos form, the Hadrus skinweaver. This species had previously been encountered only in the southwestern reaches of Segmentum Tempestus, and its presence on Mataris IV is a mystery that remains unsolved to this day.
A former missionary, now a wanted heretic, Coriolanus Vestra, corrupted the population of the world of Massey and led them into chaos, while inciting them to murder the planetary governor. The planet and its population were later destroyed by Exterminatus, though Vestra escaped and went on to ruin other worlds.
On the planet Novgorod, there was both an outbreak of the Plague of Unbelief and an orc invasion. Due to these two factors, the planet was subjected to Exterminatus. It was on this planet that Adriana Furia, an inquisitor of the Ordo Malleus, first met Inquisitor Male Orbiana of the Ordo Xenos.
Malodrax is a fortress world belonging to the Chaos Space Marines of the Iron Warriors, under the command of warsmith Shontu. Imperial Fist's Captain Darnath Lysander was imprisoned and tortured here. He managed to escape the planet, after which he returned with reinforcements, purging the planet. Later, with the help of orc allies, Shontu built a new base on the planet in the form of a fortified fort. However, the planet was completely destroyed by the Phalanx during the fall of Malodrax in 971.
Raphanon is a world that fell under the steamroller of a Tyranid hive fleet. The Xenos managed to consume the rebels and all other living environments in a matter of weeks in late 993 M40. Yet before their arrival, a civil war raged on the planet. The Loyalist commander, Lord General Blythe, who had been fighting for Raphanon for 3 years, learned of the planet's fate a couple of months before the Xenos arrived. A plan was devised to get rid of both the Xenos and the rebels. To do this, it was necessary to lure the Tyranids to the planet and wait for the biomass consumption phase, and then activate the planet's Exterminatus. The Imperial forces did just that, ensuring a swift and efficient evacuation of Loyalist forces during the Tyranid attack. Then, a very small vessel, equipped with the fastest engines and the most sophisticated shielding, slipped through the Hive Fleet blockade and launched a single cyclonic torpedo, declaring the final death of the world and the Xenos lifeforms on its surface. The rebellion was crushed, and Leviathan was dealt an impressive, though not fatal, blow.
Disease swept the tiny planet of Nebrus 9, and its cities were overrun by plague zombies, despite the best efforts of the Astra Militarum. Regiments of the Mordian and Noctan Imperial Guard were retreating to the evacuation point when the Inquisition declared Exterminatus on the planet. A stormtrooper regiment known as the Redemption Corps was sent to evacuate the surviving Noctans and Mordians just hours before the cyclonic torpedoes hit the planet.
Serving as a forge world since the Dark Age of technology, the people of Shinlong worshipped a dragon god. During the Great Crusade, the Emperor himself arrived on Shinlong and forced them into submission. Among those killed by the Emperor was the creator of the lantern, a pistol that would later become Mortarion's personal weapon. The planet was captured by the Wordbearers in late M41, but quickly retaken by the Blood Angels. Later, after the Loyalist Space Marines left the planet, the population was all too willing to embrace the Wordbearers again, and Chief Librarian Mephiston concluded that the people of Shinlong were irrevocably tainted by chaos, ordering the planet destroyed in the fires of Exterminatus.
Phanon Prime was an isolated hive world that suffered from the piratical activities of Xenos slavers. Its situation only worsened in recent years, as what little Imperial protection it received was withdrawn to aid in the nearby Angevin Crusade. Growing increasingly bitter, the Lord Commander of Phanon Prime declared secession from the Imperium and, with the help of ships from his new pirate allies, soon crushed any resistance from neighboring planets. In a bloody orgy, he cast down the blessed icons of the Ministorum and raised filthy idols of chaos in their place. The commander believed that the Imperium's slow response would protect him from swift retribution. He was proven wrong when the infamous Xanthite Lord Inquisitor and Warlord Cobra Zaquair, arriving with an Inquisition fleet task force, delivered a sentence on Phanon Prime as harsh as it was merciless. His task force routed the pirate fleet and launched the Life Eater virus without delay. The hive world of 14 billion souls was put to death as punishment for their pride and blasphemy. Subsequently, Phanon Prime was placed under the rule of the Holy Ordos. The devastated planet began to be used as a repository for captured weapons and captives for study by the Xanthite Cabal, drawn into service on the distant and dead world. Just a few decades after Phanon Prime became a Xanthite base, disturbing reports began to reach Inquisitors that darkness and heresy had once again taken hold of the dead world. A secret agent was sent to scout Xanthite activity on the dead world. What he discovered prompted an immediate purge within the ranks of the Ordo Calixis sector and the neighboring Ixaniad sector, as the Inquisitors on Phanon Prime were traitor Phanonites. They were fusing warp magic with devices from the Dark Age of technology. Following the deaths of the Phanonites and those accused of aiding them, the Ordo Calixis became convinced that some corrupting consciousness resided on Phanon Prime, and requested the assistance of the priests of Mars in destroying the planet. By tearing a nearby moon from its natural orbit, the Mechanicus were able to strike Phanon Prime, shattering the accursed planet to pieces.
Inquisitor Severnius led a Deathwatch squad, along with Brother Artemis, to the world of Terranhorst, where they soon discovered that the population had been psychically enslaved by the enslavers. These highly dangerous Xenos managed to enslave several Space Marines before Severnius could raise a psychic shield. Under fire from the brainwashed population and their former comrades, the Deathwatch Marines and the Inquisitor retreated to a small temple of the Emperor. There, they fought the enslavers' puppets for 6 days before they could contact their ship in orbit, and a Thunderhawk was sent for them. Before the transport arrived, the weakened Severnius was killed by an enslaved Space Marine, leaving Brother Artemis in command. Taking the Inquisitor's body with them, the Deathwatch returned to their ship. Once on board, Artemis ordered the Exterminatus procedure to be launched on the doomed planet.
The heavy metal showdowns of the Necrons bore fruit. In an attempt to get rid of Orican, Trazyn unleashed a gene-stealer into the depths of the world of Serenade to kill the ancient Chronomancer. However, Orican repelled the attack and successfully fled. Many centuries later, the gene-stealer established a full-fledged cult and raised a rebellion across the world. After the planet was flooded with gene-stealers, the Imperium was forced to perform an Exterminatus, turning Serenade into a dead world, but leaving the Necron tomb deep underground still active.
The agri-world of Agnarsenhold was exterminated after Inquisitor Barbalus failed to return from its surface. He had given clear instructions to destroy the world due to the increased danger of the warp forces spreading.
Sondheim V was an agri-world of the Imperium until Kar the Reborn turned it into his personal demon world. However, his rule did not last long, as Hive Fleet Leviathan soon descended upon the world. In the ensuing battle, Carnifexes fought bloodthirsters in the twisted streets of the desecrated cities, while Zoanthropes waged psychic duels with Lords of Change. The Sky Sentinels chapter was sent to reclaim Sondheim V for the Imperium, but seeing the situation, they decided to call in an Exterminatus instead, without even thinking of landing on the planet. The Grey Knights, who arrived in time, did descend to the planet's surface to retrieve a valuable artifact, the Book of Pandageras. They succeeded, as per tradition, with huge losses. After that, the planet was destroyed, and all the participating Sky Sentinels had their memories wiped.
On the agri-world of Quintus, the arrival of a splinter of Hive Fleet Behemoth triggers an uprising of a gene-stealer cult known as the Chosen Star. Space Marines of the 8th Company tried to suppress the rebellion, but could not stop the spread of the gene-stealer cult. By order of Chapter Master Calgar himself, the planet is subjected to Exterminatus.
St. Josman's Hope was the 9th planet of the Cadia system. It served as an imperial military prison in the Cadian sector. The heart of St. Josman's Hope was a massive, continent-sized prison complex. The world itself was attacked by the forces of chaos during Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade. The Imperial counteroffensive to reclaim St. Josman's Hope was successful, but only partially. The prison complex itself remained under the control of the Violators' warband. They were recruiting huge masses of criminals for their own purposes and gradually transferring them from the planet to transport ships. During a meeting of representatives of all major Imperial military forces in the sector, Lord Castellan Ursarkar Creed ordered the destruction of the planet. since options like a traditional Exterminatus and bombardment with available Nova cannons were unavailable due to the great distance to the carriers of the necessary weapons. The only remaining way was to send a small special forces team to trigger tectonic instability by overloading the Generatorum network in the main prison complex. Members of various Imperial forces were combined into Strike Force Herald. They penetrated to the very heart of the world on a daring and suicidal mission and successfully destroyed St. Josman's Hope. However, all of its members perished during the destruction of the planet. Chorion 9 is a planet located deep in the Halo Zone. Little is known about the planet other than that it has a mysterious network of pre-Imperial barrows, as it was barely mapped before the planet was overtaken by chaos. Chorion 9 became a place where cultists of the Daemon Prince Gargatuloth gathered and were sacrificed. Unwilling to perform an immediate exterminatus, the Inquisition preferred a ground assault, as they needed confirmation of Gargatuloth's banishment. The Ordo Malleus assembled 3 full brotherhoods, a force of 300 Grey Knights led by 3 Grand Masters, including Grand Master Mundulus. He was the only member of the assault force who survived long enough to banish the demon. After the Grey Knights gathered all the bodies, armor elements, and blessed weapons they could find, the world was subjected to complete destruction.
As Vandire's reign goes on, it becomes impossible to deny his ever-increasing madness. He takes a perverse pleasure in torturing dissenters and political opponents. And the Ecclesiarch's severe sudden mood swings lead to Vandire declaring Exterminatus on many densely populated Imperial worlds that he believed had shown some minor sign of disrespect toward him. So strong are his influence and power that every sector of the Imperium felt the Ecclesiarch's despotism. And thanks to Vandire's persistent demands to record every single one of his pronouncements for future generations, every atrocity of the tyrant is recorded down to the smallest detail and accompanied by his insane ravings. So strong are his influence and power that every sector of the Imperium felt the Ecclesiarch's despotism. And thanks to Vandire's persistent demands to record every single one of his pronouncements for future generations, every atrocity of the tyrant is recorded down to the smallest detail and accompanied by his insane ravings.
The dusty yet adamantium-rich planet of Saharia becomes the staging ground for an invasion by the Rust Claw cult. Spreading far and wide, they make little effort to hide their growing influence. Planetary Governor Ernst, unwilling to report this to the proper authorities and thereby authorize the exterminatus of his homeworld, resorts to his own radical measures. Organizing a systematic bioscan using his vast collection of servo skulls, Ernst goes to great lengths to separate those touched by the alien gene taint from those who might be compromised. He does this in secret, for news of the Gene Stealer cult uprising has reached him from the neighboring world of Gorda 9, and he does not yet dare provoke a full-scale rebellion on his own planet. Instead, those deemed pure are gradually hidden away in a network of underground bunkers, each sealed by a clever system that keeps it safe from outsiders. Then, once he is certain his core supporters are safe, Ernst organizes a systematic bombardment with hyperfusion missiles from his personal arsenal of all those cities he marks on his prized cartographies as beyond saving. Week-long firestorms ravage the planet's surface, wiping out 98% of the population. Only the hardiest and most resourceful escape the firestorms. But, unfortunately for Ernst, among them are a large number of Rust Claw Outrider cultists.
Dialogus of the Order of the Lexicon are summoned to the industrial world of Vangoria's Folly to study a cache of ancient texts found deep within the planet's crust. While the sisters are busy with their research, rumors begin to spread among the Vangorian Prometheum barons that the texts may contain records written by the Emperor himself during the Great Crusade. More than a decade later, the Dialogus report their findings to the Ecclesiarchy. Shortly thereafter, a community of the Order of the Ebony Chalice arrives on Vangoria's Folly and destroys all 4 planetary spaceports. Canoness Intolerant delivers a prayer of assumption for the Promethean barons and their servants over the orbital macro loudspeakers. She then carries out Exterminatus by releasing self-igniting pathogens into the atmosphere.
5 squads of the Order of Our Martyred Lady are dispatched to purge the heretical cults that have sprung up on the mining world of Chandra. The sisters never arrive at their destination. This is taken as a sign that the Emperor has denied the planet's inhabitants the grace of purification. Subsequently, a decree of Exterminatus is issued and carried out on the world.
During the secession of Segmentum Pacificus, the rebel forge world of Moira is destroyed in a punitive Exterminatus by the fleet of the Adeptus Mechanicus of Mars, but not before the Moira Schism splits the Adeptus Mechanicus in two and sows discord within the ranks of the Iron Hands chapter.
Following the disastrous Battle of Elixia, surviving Scutari are sent to recover runic inscriptions on the ancient standing stones of Gravesend. In doing so, they open a long-forgotten gate to the warp. Elixia is consumed by a demonic invasion, and its remaining population is wiped out. Exterminatus is carried out within a week. As we can see, the world of Warhammer is full of dangers, and no one can be safe from death raining down on you from the skies without warning or regret. There are a million worlds in the Imperium, and the disappearance of some of them will never be noticed by anyone, and this bloodthirsty galaxy has plenty of ways to make it happen. Thank you for watching our episodes of No Epic Tales Engmain Pel. Hit the bells, Mitchell Roth, Rup the and See you next time.